Hello everybody, Gisele Grenier here. I've been away for a while, but I'm glad to be back. And I thought I would start off right off the bat with trying out a new product. So I got this from DecoArt. I was really intrigued. Well, first of all, I said Salt Wash Beach, and I thought I would give this a try just from the name and the effect that it gives. So basically it combines acrylic paint with a texture base, and it's all packaged up in a nice kit. You can get this stuff in individual pieces, and I will be doing another video on basically DIYing it yourself. So I'm going to go over the supplies, and I may add in or take out some pieces, and then you'll see in the video what I end up using. So I'm going to be using the DecoArt Designer Finishes, and this is the Salt Wash Beach. Okay, I'm going to screw that up many times. And what that's made up of is the DecoArt Vintage Effects White Turquoise, and then the DecoArt Americana Bahama Blue. Love the name. Then the DecoArt Americana Texture Sand Medium. So it's in that kit. But you know that I'm a big fan of the DecoArt Media line and the Traditions line. You can do this as well with that. You can use the Vintage Effect Wash line by itself, but you could also use, let's say, let me just get this, the chalky gesso for your white. Oh my goodness, because it's a real super matte finish. And then you can make a turquoise with the Traditions or the fluid acrylic paints. Same thing with the Bahama Blue if you want to use that. And in that video I will be using the actual Traditions and fluid acrylics. Then the Texture Sand Medium, that's available in the Media line and in the Traditions line as well. So you're not stuck with having to use a specific line. You can, I mean, even the Sand Medium, take some clear matte medium and add sand. Mind you, you're going to have impurities in there, so you want to DIY it, that's fine that way, but just don't give it away as a gift until you figure out if it's going to, what it's going to be like in a few months. It's always best when you're giving a gift or selling stuff that you're using proven art materials. So I'm going to be using that kit, and I'm also going to be using the DecoArt Chalky Gesso, but not in that big container because that's too hard for me to hold. I put it into a smaller tube. And what inspired me, you can tell it's been a while. I'm all over the place right now, so bear with me. So I'm looking for this color scheme, actually this color scheme right here. This one here. And obviously the colors go well with that. And let me just take that out. Now, I don't know if that in the monitor, this looks more green. Hopefully it'll come through as more of a blue-green, but yeah, so it's more of a turquoise color. Let me put that away. And I'm also going to be using the DecoArt Americana Decor stencil. This is a tropical leaf. Now what I'm doing in this one here is basically an experimental piece because I don't go straight to canvas for anything. I try it out first, see how it works, especially when trying out new product, and see how it works and then go from there. So because I'm going to be using paste, so I'm going to be using the DecoArt Dimensional Effects, the paintable texture paste. You can also use modeling paste because I want to stencil that and I want it to be thick. You can use like the modeling paste, anything that you can paint. But because I'm using the texture paste, I need a pretty serious substrate. So hopefully you're not going to get the swoosh on the microphone. I'm going to be using the Canson watercolor paper. It's 140 pound. And if this works, then I'll go straight to a canvas board. So I want to show you a quick trick on measuring stuff. So because I'm doing a, where is this? There it is. Because I'm doing just a study piece, it doesn't really matter. I can do it on the whole piece like this. Problem with doing something this thick, I have no idea how this is going to work. We all know that a lot of liquid acrylics or watercolor on something that's 140 pound may warp the paper. And because I'm going to be using a texture paste through a stencil, we cannot afford any curling. So ideally, when you cut your pieces smaller, there's less chances of curl. So I'm just going to go here. This will give me some, room to grab. And Okay, would help if I had a pencil. So I'm looking around there. I'll just take that. And there's two sides to the paper. There's the rough side and the smooth side. I want the rough side. And I'm just going to cut this. Now, if you're more advanced, you can just skip. I'm doing these videos for beginners so they can get the full experience. And then these pieces I will use for something else. Put those in my container there. Okay, note to self. I redid my little studio here, and it's still a bit tight. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. And then from that you can turn it any way you want. So first thing we're going to gesso it. And why are we gessoing it? To build some texture on the substrate and to prepare it to receive paint. If I were to put liquid paint right through this, it's going to soak up into the paper, whereas a gesso creates that barrier. Ooh, that's messy there. So I'm just going to pour it on. Nothing fancy. Let me just put a mat underneath, or not a mat up. It's going to take me about 5 videos to get back into the swing of things. So just putting that on there. Now, one thing that you could also do, and this is, I don't recommend, well, okay, I don't recommend it because I've damaged my cutter, is that you could do this on the full sheet, then cut it through your paper cutter. I damaged a few of my blades that way, so I'm not going to do that anymore. And those blades are pretty pricey. So I'm going to gesso it, might as well. Okay. Now, if you're doing this straight on canvas, you don't need to prime, but I always like to do an extra coat of gesso just to make sure, especially if the canvas is coming from a factory. Sometimes they're wrapped in plastic and there's that residue, plastic residue on it. It doesn't hurt. On top of that, you can make this as smooth or as rough as you want. Now, I always pick it up and I tilt it to make sure I tilt it to the light to see where I've missed. And my brush was just slightly damp. You can use any brush for this. When doing gessoing, sometimes cheaper brushes are better because gesso, once it dries in your brush, it's very hard to clean out. All right, that's that. Now I'm going to put that aside. So let's talk about this for a sec. So with these products here, I'm just going to give you an overview as to what I'm going to be doing, because then if you don't have these, you can come up with an idea of what you want to do yourself. It's going to be this way, this way, this way, this way. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a layer of the Vintage Effect Wash, the white, to the canvas or the paper. And then I'm going to mix the Americana, the Bahama Blue, and the Texture Sand Medium, about 1-to-1 ratio. Mix those together. Then use a palette knife, and I'm just going to scrape it on the paper. Then, then I'm going to stencil the palm leaf with the paintable texture paste. Then I'm going to apply in random spots some of the turquoise and then let that dry, and then come back with the Vintage Effect Wash, the white, and then I'll put another layer on that. Now, that's what I say I'm going to do. Whether or not I do that, is another story, because it all depends on what happens. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry, and then when we come back, we'll get started with the next step. So the gesso's dry, but I'm making a change because the purpose of the Vintage Effect Wash is basically because it's a much thinner thing, and if you do it on wood, it lets some of the grain show through. So I'm not going to get the full feature of this. So I'm going, well, that's just like white paint, but I can see that it's through the palette paper, I can see that it's a little bit more transparent. And looking on the back, it says create custom pickled, washed, and other faux finishes on home decor projects. So I'm going to add some text. That way I can test the transparency of everything. So I brought out the Decor Medium matte medium, and I just have some random book paper, and I'm just going to make some cuts. And so I'm thinking just put this one in here, put that one up here, put this one here. So I'm just getting, I don't like hard edges like that. So we'll just put that. So I'll do the corners, and then we'll add some of these pieces here like this. And the beauty is when you're doing stuff like this, it's all about experimenting. If I had to do art that was perfect on the first batch, I wouldn't bother, because I like to experiment. Okay, so I'm thinking something like that. Okay. Now I'm going to forget what I did. I'm going to take the matte medium, and I'm going to put it, let's do this. Let's not do that. Let's do another one. You know what, you guys? I promise I'll be more in tune as to what's going on with my routine once I've done a few videos. It's been a while. All right. I don't know. Let me know where you guys are in the world, and let me know what your weather's like. We've been under some Mother Nature's been pretty pissed off at us with the heat. So those of you that think that Canada is all about polar bears, no. No. Move that, and now I'm just going to start putting in the pieces. And they don't have to be perfect. That's the beauty about this. It doesn't have to be perfect, because we're going to be setting a lot of this stuff back. I probably should take that charm off my bracelet. All right. And that's going to go this way. Again, this is a experimental piece, so I'm not going for perfection. If I get the gist of the idea, the feeling, the spirit, that's what I'm going for. I want to, first of all, I want it to be handcrafted, so I don't like doing any art that looks like it was bought in a store or came off an assembly line overseas. That's not who I am. Right, let's start overlapping some stuff. Create some visual interest here. Little islands. Ooh, you know what song came to me? Islands in the, was it Islands in the Sea? Yeah, Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton. Oh, I love that song. I love that song. Now, if you're familiar with collage, you can skip ahead. No worries. Will not be offended. Yeah, all these look like little teeny weeny islands. Teeny weeny islands. Can overlap a little bit more. Again, I have no idea what this is going to look like, so just winging it. Probably should have got a bit more paper, but let's just stick with this. All right, and these papers I am going to keep because I can use them to strengthen some other substrate. Now, I'm going to put the matte medium. Now, guess what time it is? If you guys have been watching me for a while, you know what time it is. It's the part that I hate the most. It's drying time. Look at this. See, this got wet. The text that's on the back side is showing through. I love that. And this text from this paper is showing through. All right, so I covered a full piece here, and I'm going to leave it on the palette paper. If it sticks to the palette paper, I don't care because I can always cut it. I can always cut the palette paper around it, but palette paper is pretty well no stick, so it should be all right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and wash this brush because this matte medium is so strong. The adhesive power is so strong that I don't want to ruin my brush. Okay, so put that in the water. Now, if you don't have matte medium, you can use decoupage medium. So what I would do, if I've got the decoupage medium, the one there's a matte finish and gloss finish and all that stuff. I wouldn't use the gloss finish, the gloss decoupage medium at this stage because it's right at the bottom layer. I would use the matte finish because that way it still has some tooth. So if you don't have the matte medium, use a matte decoupage finish. Just as long as it's fully transparent and matte, you're going to be fine. So this, I'm saying, with how hot it is right now, it's going to take maybe 10 minutes to dry. So when we come back, we'll go on to put on the Vintage Effect, the white, and then we'll progress. And I can use the heat gun in short bursts to speed up the drying time. Okay, so this is dry now, and I trimmed the sides. And what I'm going to do now is take the Vintage Effect Wash White and put that on there. Now I put everything in order and I screwed up the order, so I changed up the order of that. And the brush is just damp. See, that shows how transparent that is. So that can give you some other ideas of what you could use as an alternative product. I'm thinking I could use the Decor Media Fluid Acrylics for this. I would say probably is it translucent or transparent? I think it's translucent titanium white. Or just take, any paint and add a little bit of water to it, or extender, matte medium. If you add matte medium to any paint, you're going to be making everything stronger. So I'm going to put that much on there, and then I'm going to dry it because we all know what happens with acrylics when they dry darker. So, okay, so let's see what we get with that. So I'm going to use my heat gun, but I'm going to cut that part out of the video because it's just tedious. I'm going to show the first part, and then I'll cut it out. So I'm going to take the heat gun. You can use a hair blower too, but the air force is so strong that it'll just blow everything away. So I just use my heat gun about 12 inches above, and I'm always moving it. And then I'll put my hand in there. If my hand can take the heat, it's fine. But if my hand, it feels like it's burning, I have to pull the heat gun further up. Look how translucent that is. Okay, so that's one of the beauties of using this product on actual home decor pieces like wood or anything that you can see grain and texture through it. For this purpose, though, it's a little too translucent for me. So I really want to push that back. So I'm thinking I could even use gesso for that. Let me use the... I'm going to use the Decor Media Fluid Acrylics to see what that is. I'll just use it on the same brush. Look at the difference. Look at the difference on that. So I'll spread that out. That's just a little too translucent for me. Okay, so that's one thing that really gives me some good information. So if I was to use the Vintage Effect wash on wood, the grain would show through. So I like that, and I do have an idea for that, what I like to do. So just pushing that back. Now the other thing we could have done too is just put a sheet of tissue paper on top. That would have worked as well. All right, so I'm going to dry this one. I'm going to flip that paper around because now the next step is to mix the blue, Bahama blue, with the texture sand medium. So I'm going to put a good amount on there. Like that. Now I know this stuff is thick. How's that going to come out of the bottle? Oh my goodness. Okay, don't like this. I don't like that in a bottle. That's way too hard on my hands. Okay, if I was a palette knife, where would I be? Oh, for goodness sakes. Okay. Well, guess I'll have to grab that one. Yeah, so that I know I have it in little containers like this. That's what I would use. That's really hard on my hands. So if you don't have arthritis, you'll be fine. So really what we're taking now is just taking the texture sand and mixing it with acrylic paint. It's going to create that grit, which will be interesting because when the paint evaporates or dries, you're going to have that, I would think, looking at that, you're going to have a little bit of that. You're going to have a little bit of that grit behind. So I'm just going to scrape primarily over where there's the white of the paper. Break up some of that text. So all I'm doing is I'm just pushing the palette knife down and just making sure I don't have any hard lines. Oops, too much. But you can scrape, scrape, scrape. Making sure I have some in the corners. Don't want to leave any little tiny open gaps in the corners, so that draws the eyes to the corners. That's kind of pretty. I like that. I don't like this big blob here though. I need to break that up a bit more. There we go. And with this, I mean, there's no right or wrong way to do it. You just do what feels right. Because we're going to be adding white as well. Alright, so still have a lot of that left over. Okay, so I'm going to take this. Oopsie, I have. Get off me. I'm going to take that and put that aside. And I'm going to take that other little piece here. Fill that up. This would make for a nice background as well for something. So it also makes for a good swatch card. So now I know what the product does. Put that aside somewhere and put that there. Okie dokie. So now I have to let this piece, whoops, come on. I have to let this piece dry. This won't take too long to dry. So I'm going to clean this up, come back, and then in the next step, we're then going to move that over out of the way because now we don't need that anymore. We're going to come back with the turquoise. You will never guess what. I forgot to turn I didn't forget to turn my microphone on, but the battery was dead. Something I should have checked. So I apologize for the quality of the audio. Okay, so I'm going to put that over here now. Make sure that have steps. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my number 8 Bristle Bright. And this is the turquoise. It's going to load that really well. And now I'm just going to grab, oh, okay, this is really blending. This is really blending. Not getting much contrast. Okay, I can see where the palette knife scrapes were coming in. I'm not sure I like that. Okay, let me try a different brush. Oh, just gonna try a dry synthetic. Yeah, I'm not liking the contrast. There's not enough contrast for me. But in saying that, this is just the set, that the colors that came with the set, so I can just change that up. I'm gonna put a little bit of color in there. Okay, this I like, the transparency. Okay, I'm liking that. And we're not stuck with stark white. Yeah, it's really, really subtle. So for what I was trying to do, this is a little too subtle for me. I wonder what if I really put a lot of paint on there, then took a baby wipe, okay, so with the sand, it's really rough on the baby wipe. Not sure. It could be just not enough of the sand paste. I don't know. I'm not going to put this everywhere. Make sure I get some in the corners. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll just work the edges a bit more. So not enough of a strong, you know, I might as well use it all up. I don't want to throw it away. Not enough of a strong contrast for me. What if I took a paper towel now? Yeah, paper towel works a little bit better. I don't want to take it down to the white. There you go. All right, so we'll leave it like that. Now this won't take long to dry at all. Okay, so now kind of like I came up with another idea for this. Well, not for this one, but for another project. So now what I want to turn this, and I want to get something that's going to be complementary for that. Looking to make sure that I have enough areas for texture. I don't want to lose any of that. I don't want it horizontal, I want it vertical. Okay, I'm going to keep it this way. So I'm looking at putting that there. Actually, why don't I just do it this way so I won't have to worry about it. Now, I would like to use a low-tack spray, but because it's so hot, I don't know what it's going to do. I don't want it to cure. That should be enough. See, with the low tack spray, it would avoid this part here. I don't know if you can see that. See? Now, see how that big gap is? Where am I? Right there, this gap here. So you can't see this, but there's a bit of a gap right here. So with the low tack spray, it would actually be right on top. It would be stuck right to the piece. Again, I don't know what it would do on the texture, so we won't go there. All right, texture paste. This is where I'm going to have to be a little bit more creative with finishing the piece because of the low contrast. And I'm going to use the white because basically what I'm doing is I'm following the directions on the packaging because I've never used this product before. So following the directions on the packaging, other than adding the white, because art is based on what you want to do, and I let the piece guide me. I would like to actually paint this green, have this green. But what I'm thinking about doing is I'm going to work it the way the instructions say, again, other than adding that, just to see what I get. Then what I can do is I can then do another project. Like even you do the same one, different stencil, different colors, but just then say, okay, well, what if I painted this and put that through? What would it look like? Okay, so when I try a new product, I go with what the instructions say. Now the instructions don't say to do this. Your piece is actually already textured if it's a home decor piece. So this is just something I'm doing because the home decor piece I do have to work with. I don't want to experiment with a new product on that because I only have that one piece. And it was a gift from somebody. My friend Gail, who had given me some flowers or a potted plant. And I want to change the color of the pot. So I'm just flattening this out really, really well. Trying to have it as thick as possible. Okay, and just up here. What I'm doing now, my chair's squeaky. What I'm doing now is I'm just adding a little bit of texture, some parts of the leaf. You don't have to do this. I don't like it completely flat. Because when I'm adding I'm going to be adding another layer of the turquoise on this, and I'm going to do some dripping where it catches around the sides to create a really strong outline. That probably doesn't make any sense. There we go. All right, so, and this part here, be super careful. Super careful. That's just silly. You have to be careful. Okay, let me just get everything prepared. So when you're working with texture paste, it is critical that you don't slide the stencil. You lift it straight up. Wow. Holy smokies. Look at that texture. Oh, gorgeous. All right, I'm going to put that aside to dry. But what I'm going to do is this piece here, I've got all this leftover stuff. Could I do, well, I know I can. Just, even if it's just flat, just put a layer. Go. Wow, wow. Holy smokes. Okay. So then now all I gotta do is just with this here is just scrape, scrape, scrape. And whatever's left over, not a lot, pack in the container. The only time I wouldn't do that is if I had mixed paint with that. All right, so then while I'm gonna clean, I'm just gonna talk for a sec. So now I just have to basically let everything dry and then make sure clean the stencils really, really well. Now when cleaning the stencils, when using texture product, now this is your responsibility, personally, I wipe everything off first, make sure I have all the grit out of there, and then I will rinse it in underwater. I don't want any of this grit stuff going down the drain because it'll risk a clog up. So I just really wipe it clean. And then all these cloths here, I've got a little bucket on the side. I hang on to all this stuff because I can use it to collage on thin paper for additional artwork that I want to make. And this actually, the way it is now, I don't even have to wash it underwater. There we go. That's ready to be put away back in this little holder. Okay, dokie, you guys. I will be back. Now this one's gonna take probably, not that one. This one is gonna take probably about a good hour to dry, at least. So when that's dry, we'll come back and oh, I love that. Then what I'm gonna do is come in. I may even leave that white. Is to take the color wash, the white, because the next set of instructions is to take that and then put some white on the piece. And what I'm thinking, because I don't want it to compete with the leaf, oh, could I bet you I can. Oh, gold, paint that gold. Okay, I'm going to put that there just as a idea. If I put the white on the background, if I put too much, this is going to get lost. But I don't know. So we'll have to see what happens when this dries and then we put on the wash of white. Because what it is to get this effect here. And I've been able to get this without using these products in a video quite a while ago. Actually using this stencil. It's a nautical style stencil, and it was just with, I think it was phthalo blue, white, the stencil, and I think I used modeling paste, I think, and got this relatively the same effect. So we'll see what happens. So I'll see you in a bit. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? So for a study, it's fine, but I'm thinking now that this could have been, even on a picture frame or a platter or something. And I don't know what that is there. But the paintable texture, I mean, I wouldn't even have to worry about painting it. What I've liked, now that I look at this, I would have liked to have added some green to this to bring the leaves out. I'm going to leave it because now what I want to do is, because we did the initial, got the text block in there, we went in with the Bahama blue, overlaid some turquoise. I may come back with a bit more turquoise, but what I want to do now is come in with the Vintage Effect, the white. And there's a bunch of different ways. You can thin it down with water and apply it. I'm going to dry brush it with a big bristle brush, and I actually want to, I would like to use a bigger bristle brush, but the bigger brushes I have are all for oil paints, and I don't want to, you can't do that. You can't take a brush, you can go, if you could put a brush in acrylics, you can then take it to oils, but then you can't go back because there's always something left behind. Okay, so let's go a little bit bigger, a little bit more I should say. And where the text block is, I don't want to cover too much of that. Okay, the sand is really grabbing the paint. Yeah, it's really grabbing. So this is where you have to experiment. So what if I... Oh, I can hear Mia growling. What if I just did circle strokes? No, not a fan of that. Okay, so we did vertical strokes, which I kind of like. And just randomly apply it, and I'm going to go over the... I'm going to go over the leaves. You can use even just pure titanium white, but I want to take the effect of the actual texture paste, the dimensional effects, and I want to enhance that. I don't want to cover everything. I want to cover more where it's the dark blues, but not where there's a text block. Ooh, I like that. Okay, I'm going to put a bit more on there. The beauty with this, because it is more of a translucent paint, you can get some really neat effects. So I want to find where that's raised. It's a matter of just grabbing the right amount of paint. Now I'm going for where there's a lot of texture sand, and just letting that grab the paint. Yeah, I have to go into the opposite direction. But it's an interesting effect. Oh, I like that. I like that. That's really grungy look. Bit more pressure. Love this. All right, so I'm gonna dry this now, and we'll see what it looks like when we come back. Wow. Okay, the key, let it dry. And I knocked down the lights a little bit because it was quite the glare, but look at that. Now remember, this a salt wash is basically stuff that's been aged or damaged due to the salt air. So you think of what happens when salt gets into stuff. It just wears down. There's a white film on it, and that's exactly what it looks like. Look at that. And this brings me back to when Joe and I were at the Bahamas before the pandemic. The resort we were at, the particular room was right at the ocean. We were probably maybe 50 feet from the ocean, and this, where our balcony was, and the side of the thing, it was all salt washed, and it looked all like this. It was really, this particular piece right here was really pretty. So I could even take just that and put it into my Bahama book, and that would be really neat. But there we go. So the key is to let it dry. Now, another thing that now that I've done this sample, when it actually comes to working a project, is a hard surface. The actual curve of the paper, okay, made a difference in how things took. So where the paper was really curved, the pressure, when I was going with the brush, where it was curved, obviously where it was curved, the brush pressure was more here, but not so much where it was flat. So think of it, the brush going like this, and then hitting this part right here. So a flatter surface would have been key. Painting the dimensional effects, for mixing it with paint first. But now I'm looking at this, that I could picture this with gold or silver. Now, does that make sense for a salt or a sea wash effect. So, is it salt wash? Sea wash? Salt wash beach. Is that appropriate? It might not be, because you wouldn't have something so distressed and then have something that's, blingy gold. That might not make sense. On top of that, would that make sense for a Caribbean look? Probably not. This would be more white. So take the whole project into account if you're looking for this type of effect. But just play with it. Just play with it and just have some fun. I have an idea for another project I'm going to try out first, and then if that works, then I will bring it on camera. But the next step for here now is basically to varnish it for protection. Now, because it's a study, I wouldn't worry about it. But if you were to varnish this, keeping in mind that this is a washed out distress piece, would you use a matte, satin, or gloss varnish? I'll leave that up to you to answer that in the comments below. Let me know what you think. And what are some ideas for this type of look? What are some ideas that you can come up with for creating, let's say, a home decor piece? What could you imagine with this type of look? And pop that in the comments below as well. And if it's something I have in-house, then I will do a video on that. All right, and if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in the next lesson. Until then, stay inspired.